The message came on a Friday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly earnings reports for my company's portfolio of subsidiaries. My phone buzzed on the polished surface of my executive desk, the Manhattan skyline stretching behind me through floor-to-ceiling windows. Victoria. My older sister by 3 years. I opened the text and read it twice, letting the familiar sting of dismissal wash over me before it evaporated into the analytical calm I'd perfected over 15 years in private equity. Family reunion next month is being held at the Pemberton estate. Rebecca's new CEO, Richard Pemberton himself, will be attending as her +1. This is a networking event for successful professionals. Given your situation, it might be better if you skip this one. We don't want any awkward conversations about career choices. Hope you understand. My situation. My career choices. I set the phone down and returned to the financial statements in front of me. Chin Industries' latest acquisition was performing above projections. The pharmaceutical division needed restructuring, but the manufacturing arm was solid. Another successful quarter for the portfolio. My portfolio. The one I'd built from a single $3 million investment 15 years ago into a private equity empire worth $2.8 billion. But my family didn't know that. To them, I was still Maya Chin, the daughter who'd dropped out of the family business to play with computers, in some vague tech startup that never quite materialized. The one who lived modestly, drove a practical car and never talked about work because, they assumed, there wasn't much to talk about. They had no idea that Chin Industries, the private equity firm they'd never heard of, owned controlling stakes in 17 companies across 6 industries, employed over 4,000 people, and had just been ranked by Forbes as one of the top 15 most influential private equity firms in North America. They didn't know because I'd never told them. 15 years ago, when I'd left the family's traditional corporate path, my father had wanted me to join the family's mid-sized import business. I'd made a choice. I'd taken the small inheritance from my grandmother, $3 million that my parents had dismissed as nice but not life-changing, and I'd disappeared into the world of venture capital and private equity. My family had been disappointed. My father had given me speeches about loyalty and tradition. My mother had worried about my stability. My sister Victoria had been openly contemptuous. "You're throwing away a guaranteed position for some fantasy about being an entrepreneur," she'd said. "You'll be back in 2 years begging for a job." I hadn't gone back. Instead, I'd spent 2 years learning everything I could about identifying undervalued companies, negotiating acquisitions, and restructuring for profitability. My first major success had been a struggling medical device manufacturer that I'd purchased for $8 million, restructured, and sold 3 years later for $47 million. I'd reinvested every dollar. By year 5, I had a portfolio worth $180 million. By year 10, I'd crossed the billion-dollar threshold. By year 15, Chin Industries was managing assets worth $2.8 billion. And I personally controlled companies that ranged from pharmaceutical manufacturers to technology consulting firms to luxury resort properties. I kept a low profile deliberately. No media interviews, no social media presence, no public profiles. I operated through holding companies and investment vehicles. When I attended industry conferences, I was Maya Chin, managing partner of Chin Industries, a name that meant everything to people in private equity and nothing to people outside it. My family had never bothered to Google me. They'd never asked what company I worked for. They'd never inquired about the details of my work beyond superficial questions that I answered vaguely. "Still doing the tech thing?" my father would ask at the occasional family dinner. "Still investing," I'd reply. "Any big wins?" Victoria would ask with thinly veiled condescension. "A few successful exits," I'd say, and change the subject. They interpreted my modest lifestyle as evidence of modest success. I lived in a comfortable but not ostentatious townhouse in Brooklyn. I drove a Tesla Model 3, practical and electric but not flashy. I wore well-made but understated clothes. I didn't vacation in obvious places or post about my life online. What they didn't know: the Brooklyn townhouse was one of 4 properties I owned, including a penthouse in Manhattan that I used for business entertaining and a villa in Tuscany. The Tesla was one of 3 vehicles. The others, including a vintage Porsche, stayed in a private garage I never mentioned. My clothes were custom-tailored by a designer who dressed Fortune 500 CEOs but didn't advertise. I wasn't hiding my wealth. I simply wasn't advertising it to people who'd already decided I was a failure. Victoria, meanwhile, had become the family's success story. She'd climbed the corporate ladder at various pharmaceutical companies, and 6 months ago, she'd landed a position as Senior Vice President of Strategic Development at Pemberton Pharma, a mid-sized pharmaceutical company that specialized in generic drug manufacturing. She'd been insufferable about it. Richard Pemberton himself recruited me, she'd announced at the last family dinner. He said my strategic vision was exactly what the company needs. We're positioned for major growth. My father had beamed with pride. My mother had actually teared up. They'd toasted Victoria's success, her intelligence, her inevitable rise to even greater heights. I'd smiled politely and said congratulations. What I hadn't said, I knew Pemberton Pharma very well. I'd been analyzing them for 6 months as a potential acquisition target. The company was hemorrhaging money, losing market share to larger competitors, and desperately seeking either a buyer or a merger partner to stay afloat. Richard Pemberton, the CEO and majority shareholder, was running out of options. His company was valued at approximately $340 million on paper, but the real value, after accounting for debt, declining revenues and competitive pressures, was closer to $180 million. Chin Industries had been in preliminary discussions with Pemberton's investment bankers for 3 months. Now, reading Victoria's text about the professionals-only family reunion where Richard Pemberton would be attending as her +1, I understood the full picture. Victoria was dating her CEO. The CEO who was currently negotiating with my company about a potential merger that would save his failing business. And neither of them had any idea that Maya Chin, Victoria's failure sister, was the M. Chin who controlled Chin Industries. I texted back simply, understood. Enjoy the reunion. Then I called my head of mergers and acquisitions. David, where are we with the Pemberton Pharma deal? Final negotiations are scheduled for next Wednesday, David replied. Pemberton and his team are coming to our offices. He's bringing his COO and CFO. Seems eager to close. I'll be leading the meeting personally. Really? You usually let me handle the final negotiations. This one's special. Make sure the Pemberton team knows that M. Chin will be at the table. I want them prepared to negotiate directly with the principal. Will do. Any particular strategy you want to employ? I smiled. Just the usual. Fair terms, transparent discussion, and a deal that works for both parties. You're in a good mood about this one. Let's just say I have a personal interest in seeing this negotiation through. The weekend passed. I didn't attend any family functions. I spent Saturday reviewing Pemberton Pharma's financials in exhaustive detail and Sunday preparing the merger proposal that would save the company while bringing it under Chin Industries' control. By Monday morning, I had my strategy finalized. Pemberton Pharma would be merged into Chin Industries' pharmaceutical division. Richard Pemberton would remain as president of the division, reporting to me. The merger would preserve jobs, stabilize the company's market position, and provide the capital injection needed for Pemberton's pipeline of generic drugs to reach market. It was a good deal. Fair, strategic, and mutually beneficial. It was the kind of deal I'd built my reputation on. Tuesday evening, I got another text from Victoria. Richard is so excited about the family reunion. He wants to meet everyone. Dad is thrilled. This is exactly the kind of connection our family needs. Someone at Richard's level really elevates our social standing. Thank you for being understanding about skipping it. I read the message 3 times, analyzing the subtext. Victoria was using Richard Pemberton to elevate her status within the family. She was positioning herself as the one who'd made it, the one who brought connections and prestige. And she was doing it by explicitly excluding me. I replied, I'm happy for you both. Wednesday morning arrived with crisp autumn clarity. I dressed carefully in a charcoal gray suit from my private tailor, paired with a silk blouse and understated jewelry. Professional, authoritative, but not flashy. I arrived at Chin Industries headquarters in Midtown Manhattan at 7 a.m. The building was a modern glass tower with our name etched discreetly near the entrance. Most people walked by without noticing. That was intentional. My office occupied the entire 42nd floor. Private elevator, corner views. A conference room that could seat 20 people around a custom table carved from a single piece of walnut. David met me at 8:30 to review final details. Pemberton's team arrives at 10, he said. Conference room is set up. Our legal team is standing by. Financial presentations are loaded and ready. Perfect. Who's on our team for this? Me, you, Jennifer from legal, and Marcus from finance. I kept it small since Pemberton's only bringing 3 people. Good. Let's make sure they're comfortable. This should be a collaboration, not a confrontation. You're really set on making this deal work, aren't you? Pemberton Pharma is a good company that's been mismanaged. They have valuable assets and a solid employee base. With proper capital and strategic direction, they'll be profitable within 18 months. That's exactly the kind of opportunity we look for. And it has nothing to do with Pemberton being connected to your family? I smiled. Let's just say I'm looking forward to the negotiation. At 9:45, my assistant called. Miss Chin, the Pemberton Pharma team has arrived. They're in the lobby. Please escort them to the 42nd floor. Offer refreshments in the waiting area. I'll greet them in the conference room at 10 o'clock exactly. Yes, ma'am. I took a moment to center myself. This was business. Personal feelings couldn't interfere with making the right deal. The fact that Richard Pemberton was dating my sister, the fact that Victoria had excluded me from a family event because she thought I was a failure, the fact that my entire family had no idea who I actually was, none of that could influence the negotiation. I would offer fair terms. I would structure a deal that saved Pemberton's company and served Chin Industries' interests. I would be professional, courteous, and strategic. But I would also watch Richard Pemberton's face when he realized exactly who he was negotiating with. At exactly 10 o'clock, I walked into the conference room. David, Jennifer, and Marcus were already seated on our side of the table. The Pemberton team sat across from them. A nervous-looking CFO, a stern COO, and at the center Richard Pemberton himself. Pemberton was in his early 50s, handsome in a practiced way, wearing an expensive suit and an expression of controlled confidence. He was smiling, clearly expecting this to be a routine negotiation with a mid-level executive. I walked to the head of the table and set down my portfolio. Every eye in the room turned to me. Richard Pemberton's smile faltered. His eyes narrowed in confusion. Do I know her? And then widened in recognition. Victoria's sister. The failure. The one who played with computers. His face went absolutely pale. Good morning, I said calmly. I'm Maya Chin, founder and CEO of Chin Industries. Welcome to our headquarters. I understand you're here to discuss a merger proposal. The silence that followed was exquisite. Pemberton's CFO glanced at his boss in confusion. The CEO looked between Pemberton and me, clearly sensing something was wrong but not understanding what. Richard Pemberton opened his mouth, closed it, and managed in a strangled voice, Miss Chin. I didn't realize that I was Chin? I said pleasantly. Yes, I keep a fairly low profile. Please let's sit down. We have a lot to discuss. I took my seat at the head of the table. My team looked calm and professional, though I could see David fighting back a smile. He'd figured out the connection. Pemberton slowly sat down, his composure completely shattered. I could see him trying to recalibrate, trying to process the fact that Victoria's failure sister was the CEO of a $2.8 billion private equity firm. Before we begin, I said, I want to address the obvious. Yes, I'm Victoria Chen's sister. Yes, I'm aware that you and she are in a relationship. I want to assure you that my personal connection to your situation will not impact these negotiations. Chin Industries has been analyzing Pemberton Pharma for 6 months as a potential acquisition. Our interest in your company is based purely on its strategic value and the opportunities we see for growth and profitability. Is that acceptable to you, or would you prefer to work with a different firm? Pemberton swallowed hard. No, that's acceptable. Good. Then let's proceed. I nodded to Marcus, who pulled up the first presentation slide. Our analysis of Pemberton Pharma shows a company with strong fundamentals that's facing significant headwinds. Market share has declined 23% over the past 3 years. Revenue is down 31%. However, you have a robust pipeline of generic drugs in various stages of FDA approval, a skilled workforce, and manufacturing facilities that are currently underutilized but highly valuable. I walked them through the analysis with the same precision I brought to every deal. Current valuation, debt structure, competitive pressures, opportunities for improvement. Pemberton's CFO was nodding along, clearly impressed by the depth of our research. The CEO was taking notes. Pemberton himself looked like he was in shock. After 30 minutes of presentation, I paused. Questions so far? The CFO spoke up. This is incredibly thorough. You've clearly done your homework. We always do. Now let me outline our proposed merger structure. I walked them through the deal. Chin Industries would acquire Pemberton Pharma through a stock-and-cash transaction valued at $220 million, significantly above the company's current market value but below what Pemberton probably hoped for. The company would become a division of Chin Industries Pharmaceutical Holdings. Jobs would be protected. The current management team, including Richard Pemberton, would remain in place but would report to Chin Industries board. The key advantages, I said, are immediate capital injection of $50 million for operations and drug development, access to Chin Industries' network of manufacturing and distribution partners, and strategic guidance from our team of industry experts. In exchange, we acquire 85% equity, with the remaining 15% held by current shareholders including yourself, Mr. Pemberton. That's very generous, the CFO said carefully. It's fair, I corrected. Your company is worth saving. It has good bones. It needs capital, strategic direction, and operational restructuring. We can provide all of that. But I want to be clear about expectations. This isn't a passive investment. We will be actively involved in management decisions. We will expect quarterly performance reviews. We will hold the leadership team accountable for results. I looked directly at Richard Pemberton. This is a partnership, but it's one where Chin Industries holds the controlling interest and makes final decisions. Is that something you can work with? Pemberton seemed to have regained some of his composure. May I ask a question? Of course. How long have you known about Victoria and me? Since she mentioned it at a family dinner 6 months ago. Around the same time we began our preliminary analysis of your company. And you never said anything to her? About who you are? About what you do? My family has never asked detailed questions about my work. I've answered honestly when asked, but I don't volunteer information that isn't requested. I kept my voice neutral. My professional life and my family relationships are separate domains. I prefer it that way. Does Victoria know you're this? He gestured around the conference room. She's about to find out. I assume you'll tell her. His face went even paler. She's been telling me about you. About how you never quite lived up to your potential. How the family worries about your career struggles. I'm aware of how my family perceives me. Again, that's separate from this negotiation. The question on the table is whether you want to accept Chin Industries' merger proposal. I need an answer by Friday to keep our timeline on track. The CEO leaned forward. Ms. Chin, speaking purely from a business perspective, this deal is better than anything else we've been offered. The other firms were talking about breaking us up, selling off divisions, massive layoffs. You're talking about keeping the company intact and investing in growth. That's our model. We don't buy companies to strip them. We buy companies to build them. Then yes, the CEO said, glancing at Pemberton. Assuming Richard agrees, I think we should move forward. All eyes turned to Richard Pemberton. He looked at me for a long moment. I could see him processing everything. The shock of discovering who I was, the implications for his relationship with Victoria, the reality that he was about to enter a business partnership with his girlfriend's sister, the one the family had written off as a failure. I accept the proposal, he said finally. I'd like our legal team to review the details, but the overall structure is acceptable. Excellent. Jennifer will coordinate with your attorneys. I stood and everyone else rose with me. Thank you for coming. I think this will be a very successful partnership. I shook hands with the CFO and CEO. When I reached Richard Pemberton, he held my handshake a moment longer than necessary. Victoria doesn't know, does she? He said quietly. About any of this. She will soon. I imagine you'll want to have that conversation before the merger is announced publicly. This is going to be complicated, I finished. Yes, I imagine it will be. But that's between you and Victoria. As far as Chin Industries is concerned, you're the president of a pharmaceutical company we're acquiring. Your personal relationships aren't our business. You're remarkably calm about all this. I've had 15 years to become comfortable with my family's misconceptions about my career. This is just the moment when those misconceptions get corrected. After the Pemberton team left, David closed the conference room door and let out a low whistle. Okay, I need to know the story there. I smiled. My sister is dating him. She uninvited me from a family reunion because she thought I'd embarrass her in front of her impressive CEO boyfriend. Oh my God. The reunion is in 3 weeks. Right around the time the merger will be announced publicly. You're enjoying this way more than you're letting on. I'm enjoying the business opportunity. The personal drama is just an unexpected bonus. Are you going to the reunion? I haven't decided yet. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Richard just called me in a panic. He said he's been in a meeting with Chin Industries. Do you know anything about this? He sounded really weird. Something about merger negotiations. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed, I know Chin Industries. They're a reputable firm. If Richard is working with them, he's in good hands. Her response came immediately. How do you know them? I've followed their portfolio companies. They have a good track record. Richard said the CEO was in the meeting. He said her name was Maya Chin. Like your name? I smiled. Interesting coincidence. It's not you, is it? Because that would be insane. Richard said this woman runs a multi-billion-dollar company. Why would that be insane? The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, never mind. Of course it's not you. I'll call Richard back. I set the phone down. David was watching me with an expression somewhere between admiration and disbelief. You're really going to let her figure it out on her own? She's a vice president of strategic development. She should be capable of strategic thinking. That's cold. That's honest. Victoria has spent 15 years assuming I failed because I didn't follow the traditional path. She's never once asked for details about my work. She's never Googled my name. She's never shown even casual interest in what I actually do. If she wants to know who I am now, she can do the research she should have done years ago. And if she doesn't? Then she'll find out when the merger is announced and Chin Industries' ownership structure becomes public information. Either way, the truth comes out. Over the next 3 days, my phone exploded with increasingly frantic messages from Victoria. Maya, I need you to call me. This is important. Richard is acting so strange since his meeting. Something is going on. I looked up Chin Industries. They're huge. Like huge. Worth billions. The CEO is named M. Chin. Founder and co. The company was started 15 years ago with a $3 million initial investment. Maya, grandmother left you $3 million 15 years ago. Maya, is Chin Industries your company? I didn't respond to any of them. I was busy working with legal to finalize the merger documents, coordinating with our pharmaceutical division president about integration plans, and preparing the public announcement. On Friday, Richard Pemberton signed the merger agreement. The deal was done. Chin Industries now owned 85% of Pemberton Pharma. Richard would remain as division president, reporting to me quarterly. The $50 million capital injection would begin immediately. Our PR team prepared the announcement for Monday morning. Saturday afternoon, Victoria showed up at my Brooklyn townhouse. I just finished a workout and was making coffee when the doorbell rang insistently. I checked the security camera and saw my sister standing on the steps, looking agitated. I opened the door. Is it true? She demanded without preamble. Are you M. Chin? The founder of Chin Industries? Yes. She stared at me. Are you serious right now? Would you like to come in, or would you prefer to have this conversation on the doorstep? She pushed past me into the house, spinning to face me in the entryway. You own a company worth $2.8 billion? Chin Industries manages assets worth $2.8 billion. I own the company, yes. For how long? 15 years. Since I took grandmother's inheritance and started making investments. But we thought, everyone thinks you're... She couldn't seem to find the words. A failure. I supplied. Yes, I know. Why didn't you say anything? You never asked. I walked past her into the kitchen, pouring my coffee calmly. Coffee. I don't want coffee. I want to know why you've been lying to us for 15 years. I haven't lied once. You asked if I was still doing the tech thing. I said I was still investing. You asked about big wins. I said I'd had successful exits. Every single thing I told the family was completely true. You just made assumptions about the scale. Victoria sank into a chair. Richard is losing his mind. He says you're acquiring his company. He says you were in the meeting. You negotiated the deal personally. That's all accurate. You're going to be his boss. Technically, he'll be president of the pharmaceutical division and report to our board, which I chair. But yes, essentially. This is insane. How are we supposed to? What is he supposed to? What are we supposed to do? You're supposed to continue your relationship or not, based on whether you actually care about each other. The business arrangement is separate. But you're my sister. I've always been your sister, Victoria. That hasn't changed. What's changed is that you now know what I do for a living. She put her head in her hands. The family reunion. I told you not to come because I thought you'd embarrass us in front of Richard. I remember. You must think I'm such an idiot. I think you made assumptions based on limited information. We all do that sometimes. Limited information. Maya, you've been running a multi-billion-dollar company and living in this. She gestured around my modest kitchen, this normal house, driving a normal car, acting like you're just getting by. This house is very comfortable. My car is excellent. I don't need to advertise my success to feel successful. But why? Why keep it secret? I set down my coffee cup and looked at my sister directly. Because 15 years ago, when I told the family I was going to invest grandmother's money instead of joining Dad's company, every single one of you told me I was making a mistake. You said I'd fail. You said I'd be back begging for a job within 2 years. And when I didn't come back, when I didn't fail, you all just assumed I was too proud to admit defeat. We didn't. Yes, you did. Every family dinner, every holiday, every casual conversation, there was this underlying assumption that I was struggling, that I'd made bad choices, that I was somehow less than the rest of you. And you know what? I let you think that. Because it showed me who you all really were when you thought you were dealing with someone unsuccessful. Victoria's face crumpled. That's harsh. It's honest. Victoria, in 15 years, you've never once asked me detailed questions about my work. Never asked what companies I was investing in. Never asked to see my office or meet my colleagues. You were content to believe I was failing because it fit the narrative you wanted. I'm sorry, she whispered. I appreciate that. But the question now is, what changes? Are you apologizing because you're actually sorry for dismissing me, or because you just found out I'm successful and now I'm worth paying attention to? She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. That's not fair. It's completely fair. If I'd stayed in the family business, if I'd followed the traditional path, would you have treated me the same way? Or is it specifically because I chose a different route that I became someone you could look down on? She didn't answer. Here's what's going to happen, I said, gentler now. The merger will be announced Monday. Chen Industries' ownership structure is public information, so yes, everyone will know I'm the CEO. The family will find out. Dad will find out. Mom will find out. And everyone will have to adjust their understanding of who I am and what I've been doing for the past 15 years. What about the reunion? What about it? Are you going to come? You should come. You should absolutely come and show off. I shook my head. That's not my style, Victoria. I didn't build this company for validation from the family. I built it because I wanted to prove to myself that I could identify value where others didn't see it, that I could build something meaningful, that I could make a real difference in the business world. But you've earned the right to. I've earned the right to make my own choices about how public I want to be. The merger announcement will happen because it's required. The family will find out because it's inevitable. But I'm not going to parade my success around at a reunion just to make people feel bad about underestimating me. Victoria wiped her eyes. Richard wants to talk to you. About the merger, but also about everything. I'm available for business discussions. He has my office number. Maya. Victoria, I need you to understand something. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm genuinely fine with how everything has played out. But I also need you to respect that my relationship with the family is complicated now, and it's going to take time to figure out what it looks like going forward. She nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. And not just because you're successful. Because I should have been a better sister regardless. Thank you. That actually does mean something. After Victoria left, I sat in my quiet townhouse and thought about the reunion. The truth was, I didn't want to go and watch my family scramble to recalibrate their understanding of me. I didn't want to see my father's guilt, my mother's shock, the extended family's sudden interest in my opinions and my work. I'd built my life and my career without their approval. I didn't need it now. But I also realized that Victoria's apology, clumsy as it was, mattered. And maybe the reunion could be an opportunity, not to show off but to finally let my family see me as I actually was. Monday morning, Chin Industries issued the press release. Chin Industries acquires Pemberton Pharma in $220 million merger. Deal strengthens pharmaceutical division, preserves jobs, positions company for growth. The release included details about the acquisition structure, quotes from both parties, and background on Chin Industries' track record of successful mergers and acquisitions. It also included my name and title, Maya Chin, founder and CEO. By noon, my phone had 17 missed calls from family members. I ignored them all and focused on work. The Pemberton integration was going to require careful management. I had meetings with the pharmaceutical division president, calls with key Pemberton employees to reassure them about the transition, and strategy sessions with my executive team. At 3 p.m. my assistant buzzed. "Miss Chin, your father is in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment but he's asking to see you." I paused. "Send him up." 5 minutes later my father entered my office. He stopped just inside the door, looking around at the panoramic windows, the expensive furnishings, the wall of awards and recognition from industry organizations. "Maya," he said quietly. "Hi, Dad. This is your office?" "Yes. You built all this? This entire company?" "With a great team and a lot of hard work, yes." He walked slowly to the windows looking out over Manhattan. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I tried to at first. You didn't want to hear it. We would have listened if we'd known." "If you'd known I was going to be successful?" "Yes, probably. But when you thought I was just starting out, making risky investments, trying something new, you weren't interested. You wanted me to follow the safe path." He turned to face me. "I wanted to protect you from failure." "I know. But Dad, I had to be allowed to try. And when I succeeded, I needed to know that the people in my life valued me for who I was, not for what I'd accomplished. And we failed that test. You made assumptions. We all do. But yes, it hurt to be dismissed by my own family for 15 years. He sat down across from my desk, suddenly looking older. "What can I do to make this right? You can start by accepting that I chose a different path and it worked out. You can stop measuring my success by whether it looks like what you expected. And you can try to actually get to know who I am now, not who you thought I was." "I'd like that," he said. "I'd like that very much." "Then come to the quarterly board meeting next month. Chin Industries is presenting our annual strategy. You'll see what we do, meet my team, understand the scope of the work. Not as a guest, but as someone genuinely interested in learning." "I'll be there," he promised. The family reunion happened 3 weeks later. I decided to attend. When I arrived at the Pemberton estate, which coincidentally was one of the properties I'd considered acquiring the previous year but decided was overpriced, my family was gathered on the lawn for pre-dinner cocktails. Victoria saw me first. She crossed the lawn quickly, Richard trailing behind her. "You came," she said. "I came. Thank you. Really." Richard extended his hand. "Why, I wanted to thank you again for the way you've handled the transition. Your team has been incredibly professional. That's our standard. How are you adjusting?" "Better than I expected, honestly. Your pharmaceutical division president is brilliant. I'm learning a lot." "Good. That's the goal." My father approached with my mother. "Maya, sweetheart. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for having me." My mother hugged me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry we didn't see you clearly. We're so proud of you." "I appreciate that, Mom." The rest of the evening was a study in recalibration. Extended family members who'd barely acknowledged me at previous gatherings now wanted to talk business, ask for advice, understand my career path. Some of it felt genuine. Some felt opportunistic. I navigated it all with the same diplomatic skill I brought to boardroom negotiations. At one point my father gathered the family for a toast. "I want to acknowledge something," he said. 15 years ago my daughter Maya made a choice that I didn't understand. She took a risk that I thought was foolish. And I was wrong. He looked at me across the lawn. Maya built something extraordinary not because we supported her but despite our doubts. She's shown us that success comes in many forms, and the most meaningful success comes from following your own vision, not someone else's expectations. He raised his glass. To Maya, who taught us all that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust yourself when no one else does. Everyone raised their glasses. To Maya. I felt tears prick my eyes but I smiled. Later Victoria found me alone on the terrace. It's different now, isn't it? She said. Everything's different. The question is whether it's different in a good way. I think it could be. If we let it. She paused. Richard and I are getting serious. He wants me to know that he's with me because he loves me, not because of any connection to you or your company. I believe him. He seems like a good man. He is. And Maya? I'm going to be a better sister. Not because you're successful but because I should have been all along. I'd like that. We stood together, looking out at the party, at our family, at the complicated web of relationships and misunderstandings and new beginnings. You know what's funny? Victoria said. All this time we thought you were the one who needed our approval. Turns out you were the one evaluating us. I smiled. I prefer to think we were all learning about each other. It just took 15 years and a merger to make it happen. Well, she said, linking her arm through mine, better late than never. Better late than never, I agreed. And for the first time in 15 years standing at a family gathering, I felt like I was actually seen for who I was. Not who they'd assumed I'd become, not who they'd feared I'd failed to be, but who I'd chosen to become through years of hard work, strategic thinking and quiet determination. Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Industries. And finally, after all this time, someone my family was willing to know.